Okay, so sit yourself on your left and then come into a good cross-legged position. So find some comfort in your cross legs. So by comfort, I mean levelness at the seat bones. And then just have a little wriggle about so that you feel you're definitely sitting evenly. Remember, just move the buttock flesh back to the sides if you need to. Just lift and open the chest, drive your spine upwards, draw your shoulders down away from your ears. Just look down at the floor and then take some deep inhalations, followed by deep exhalations. Breathe from the top of the bottom of the lungs to the top of the lungs, like you're filling a jug with water. And as you exhale, exhale from the top of the lungs to the bottom of the lungs. Observe how the in-breath helps you to broaden and lift the chest. As you exhale, observe how the chest relaxes. If there are no problems with heart conditions or blood pressure, then you can hold the breath at the very top just for a second or two with no tension in the hold. It's not a grip, it's just a suspension of the in-breath before the out-breath. Just for a second or two, so that you ingest more of the energy of the breath. And then bring your hands into Namaste. Close your eyes with an exhalation. And then just continue to from the breath. Soften the eyes in the sockets without moving the head. Look down into the chest cavity with the eyeballs. Gently draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Release the backs of your hands back down toward your knees, palms facing upwards, and raise your head as you open your eyes. So hold on to your knees, lift and open the chest, elevating that sternum bone upwards, really making the sternum bone a prominent lift, drawing the shoulder blades in towards the front chest. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose, and then with an exhalation, turn to the right side, drawing the abdomen across, the ribs across, the shoulders across. Using the out breath to intensify the turn. And then come back to the center. Again, lift the sternum bone. Now, when you lift just one area, when you focus just on one area, it's really important that you also observe, well, what does that do everywhere else? Does it make you overwork in these kind of latissimus dorsi muscles? Does it make your back feel uncomfortable elsewhere? So as you lift here, just feel what the response is elsewhere, and then draw the abdomen in towards the chest. Raise the chest upwards. Breathe evenly and deeply, and then turn to the left. Feel that you can really observe the lift of the chest, but then kind of just observing that sense of ahimsa. So sometimes we can overwork in a particular area and we kind of do it at the expense of elsewhere. So try and observe the action, not just, or try and observe the reaction, not just the action. And then come back to the center. Just come down onto your seat bones and just sit back on your heels. Just wriggle into the inner heel and then lift and open the chest. So again, driving this sternum bone upwards, lifting up into the chest. And then come forward, hinging at the hips, keeping that sternum bone lifted, but again, with mindfulness of the reaction throughout the body. Keep the sternum bone lifted. Stretch your arms away. And then bring your forehead down. Breathe evenly and deeply. And then come up onto your knees and then just be on all fours. Bring the hands underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips, and then we can do the cat and the cow. So the cow is the really significant one we want to explore. So you turn the seat bones up towards the ceiling, lifting the tailbone up towards the ceiling, and then lift the abdomen to the diaphragm, to the collarbone, to the chin. And the action is to lift the sternum bone so much that you can almost see the ceiling. And then tuck the tailbone in Draw the chin in to meet the chest so that the back rounds in the cat pose. So cat owners amongst us, we're probably really familiar with seeing our cats having this good old stretch. And then tuck the tailbone outwards, lift the seat bones away from the backs of the knees, lift the diaphragm, the abdomen to the diaphragm, to the collarbone, to the chin, lifting that sternum bone so that you can see the ceiling. And then tuck the tailbone in, tuck the chin in, round in the back. And then just come back to neutral. Have your hands as wide apart as the mat. Step your feet as wide apart as the mat. Step back a little, turn your toes under, and then come up into dog down. Keep your knees bent to start off with, and then do that cow action, lifting the seat bones as far away from the knees, the backs of the knees as you can. Lift the tailbone up towards the ceiling. Then lift the abdomen to the diaphragm, to the collarbone, to the chin. And then straighten your legs. Let your head hang down. So just breathe evenly. Feel your pose today, how the pose feels for you. Maintaining the lift of the sternum bone so that the shoulder blades draw inwards. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. Emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. No retentions. Tadasana the legs by turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. Lifting the thigh muscle up into the hip socket. The thigh bone up into the hip socket. And then walk the feet forwards, come up into a standing position. Get a couple of blocks for your half uttanasana. Now, if you've got back problems, this is really strong to go all the way down, so stay with the blocks. Or if you've got really distinct back problems, then just come forwards onto like a tabletop or the top of a no seal or something, and then just work with keeping the chest lifted and open. Otherwise, bring your feet hip width apart. Sorry, not hip width apart, mat width apart. Turning your toes inwards, lift and open the chest, raise your arms up. So activating the toes, spreading the toes, hitting the shins back so that your weight goes into your heels. Take a deep inhalation and then hinge at the hips, gliding forwards, and then reach down, find the blocks. Be on fingertips. Just breathe evenly and deeply, lifting the backs of lifting the seat bones away from the backs of the thighs, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. So staying high up so that you can really activate the spine, because if you go down too low too quickly, it's difficult. If you can go down a little lower, then put the blocks a little lower. Extend the spine away from the legs. If you can go down a little lower, find the floor. And at this stage, the action is to really activate the legs, but then to try and lift the head so you can look at the ceiling. You won't be able to look at the ceiling, but you can try. But that action of having to lift the sternum bone to see the ceiling, that is the action that we're looking for. So lift the sternum towards the chin. Draw the shoulder blades in towards the chest. Draw the abdomen towards the spine to protect the spine. If you can go down a little lower, bend your elbows out to the sides. Get hold of the outsides of your heels. And then draw the body in. So you still using that lift of the sternum bone. And then release, and then bring the palms of the hands down onto the floor if you can. So keeping the feet wide apart, going down onto the palms of the hands, but use blocks if you need to. So pressing the palms of the hands down into the floor, lift the wrists up into the armpits, and then look forwards. Try and lift the sternum so that you can really look forwards and try and look up. It's not just looking up with the eyes, looking up with the head, but there's obviously a great restriction here, isn't there? So try and look upwards, but keeping the legs straight. Breathing evenly and deeply. And then maintaining that lift of the sternum, walk your hands forwards and then come back up into dog down. So bring your feet hip width apart this time, but still really maintain that lift of the sternum bone. Breathe evenly and deeply. Okay, step your feet forwards, come up into a standing position, and then just be in Tadasana lift. Open the chest. So this action of lifting the sternum bone. So the sternum is quite an important bone in the body, really, because the rib cage are attached to the sternum bone. So if we let the sternum bone drop, then the rib cage drops. And if the rib cage drops, then it's really hard to breathe. Just let your rib cage drop. And try and get full breaths. It's really hard. So this is the posture of a teenager, isn't it? So we all kind of adopt this posture when we get into our teens. Maybe this is an extreme version. It's really hard to breathe. It's hard to harvest energy from the breath. So feel where that sternum bone is and consciously lift it in the way that you had to lift it when you were on all fours. Lift in the sternum bone and then breathe. So there's more space to fill the lungs. And just from a mental perspective, this feels clearer, whereas this feels kind of slightly dull. This feels kind of grey, and this real lift here feels bright. Breathe evenly, deeply listening to the breath, observing the action of lifting the sternum bone, but observing the reaction elsewhere. So sometimes it makes you over dip in your lumbar. So when you lift here, draw the abdomen in towards the spine. Tuck the tailbone in a little more deeply to even out that pressure on the back. Lifting the sternum, drawing the abdomen towards the spine, lengthening the buttock flesh downwards so that you can tuck the tailbone in, giving you space in the spine. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards the chest, and then step or jump the feet apart. Turn your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out, and then bring the chest to face the front. Lift that sternum bone upwards. Abdomen towards the spine, tuck the tailbone in slightly, and then come down and see what happens in the chest. So initially, you can just drop your hand onto your hip for a second. Initially, when you come into the pose, this feels like it drops. We often see this kind of shape where the head comes into the middle of the room. And again, just everyone do that. Just feel that feeling of like dropping here. So draw the sternum bone down, and so that the head isn't over the foot, it's over the kind of floor. And this starts to become heavy really quickly, and it's not a great pleasant feeling. So I want you to do the opposite. Really lift that sternum bone, and then notice that maybe your head comes better over your foot. So lift that sternum bone, but then draw the abdomen towards the spine to protect the lumbar. Tuck the tailbone in slightly. Turn the chest up to face the ceiling, and then reach up. So sternum bone lifting. That action, be mindful of the reaction. Reach up with the top hand, come back to the center, swap the feet around, turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. Just hold on to your hips for a moment. So again, the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. Drop that sternum bone. Just feel how heavy the legs become just by dropping here. And then lift. But you can get so much lift, but then feel the feet on the floor and then suck the feet up into the hips and then lift up into the sternum bone. Drawing the abdomen towards the spine to protect the lumbar, and then come down, find the shin. Again, just do the wrong thing for a second. Let the body collapse. Let the body sink in the sternum bone. And it doesn't feel light, it feels heavy. So press the feet into the floor, suck the feet up into the hips, and then translate that action up into the sternum bone. Really lift that sternum bone high. And then notice that it adjusts this hip, it brings this front leg hip forwards. Just look down with your head over your foot. And then reach up, turn the chest up to face the ceiling, and then turn. Look up. Breathing evenly and deeply listening to the sound of the breath. And then reach up, come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump, feet back together, and then come up into Tadasana. Just breathing evenly, deeply, just listening to the sound of the breath. So feel that sternum bone lift, but if you just do that action and don't do anything with the feet and with the legs and with the torso, then you start to feel that the reaction maybe isn't brilliant. So work from the feet, spread the toes, hit the shins back so that your weight is in your heels. Tighten your kneecaps, turn the thighs inward. As you turn the thighs inwards, you notice perhaps that there's this little notch that you can draw the tailbone into so that the front pelvis lifts. Lift up into the abdomen, up into the into the sternum bone. Stretch from the shoulders down into the fingertips. Breathe evenly. Stretch your arms out in front. Turn the palms and then walk the hands behind you for namaskarasana. So bring your hand up your back. So if this is too strong for you, then you can just reach and hold on to your elbows. Otherwise, see if you can walk your hands as high up your back as you can. And then when the hands are there, don't just let them kind of hang like this. Then press the little finger side together, lift that sternum bone, draw the elbows towards the wall behind you. Lengthen from the elbows into the heels of the hands so that the palms of the hands come flat behind you. So lift that sternum bone, but work from the feet upwards. Just breathe in nice and softly, nice and deeply. Fill in the lungs from the bottom to the top. And then just very gently release your hands and then stretch your arms, stretch the fingertips. Lifting up into the chest. Just breathing evenly and deeply. And then stretch your arms forwards, interlock your fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head. Again, lifting the sternum, but working from the feet upwards. And then release. Stretch your arms behind you, interlock your hands behind your back, and then squeeze the shoulder blades together. Try and get your arms to straighten. And lifting that sternum bone, drawing the shoulder blades together. Lift up into the chin. Squeezing the shoulder blades towards each other. And then just gently release. Stretch your arms out in front, interlock your fingers, but again, interlock your fingers the kind of wrong way, so that the opposite little finger is on top. Turn the palms all the way out, don't worry about cracks and pops, that's good. And then raise your arms up and over your head. Try and lengthen the arms beyond your ears. And then release. Just bring your arms behind you, and again, interlock your fingers, but again, do the kind of wrong interlock. So do your natural interlock behind your back, and then swap your fingers around so that the opposite index finger is on the top. And then again, just the same thing, lifting and opening the chest, gathering those shoulder blades together, straightening the arms, lifting up into the chest, up into the neck, up into the chin. Breathing evenly, feeling that you're lifting from the feet up into the legs, up into the chest, up into the neck, into the head, down into the arms. And then just release your arms. Stretch your arms out in front, turn the palms all the way out, and then namaskarasana again. Bring your arms behind you, walk those hands up your back, and then maybe this time You can perhaps walk your hands up your back a little more easily. And then step or jump your feet wide apart. So Christine, this might be a little strong for your back. So rather than coming forwards with your hands in with Namaste, then just come into normal prasarita padottanasana 1. So this is prasarita padottanasana 2. Let me just show you. So you come forwards with the hands in the back, lengthening that front chest, maintaining the lift of the sternum bone, and then you bring your head down. If that's going to be too strong for you, then just release your hands and then come into prasarita padottanasana 1 as normal. So just decide which of those feels right for you today. And then really spread the toes, activate the toes, lift up into the legs, into the hips, into the chest, and then come forwards, hinging at the hips, maintaining the length of the front of the body, of the front of the chest. Breathing evenly, lifting from the feet up into the legs, into the hips, into the spine, into the sternum bone. And then just release your arms from Namaste. Bring your hands down onto the floor. Walk your hands forwards. Just come up into halfway point of prasarita padottanasana 1. And then bring the palms of the hands down. Lift the sternum so you can look up to the ceiling. And then soften, bend your knees, and then step or jump your feet back together, and then come back up into a standing position. And then urdhva hastasana. Raise your arms up. So breathing evenly and deeply. So lots of action in the shoulders. Bring in smoothness into the shoulders, but bring in energy into the shoulders. Just come down onto all fours, or you can do supta baddhakonasana if you prefer. So going up into dog down, Adho Mukha, virasana, tucking the tailbone, so tucking the toes under, and then just come up into dog down. So just observe how your body feels. So you can do supta baddhakonasana if you prefer. So laying on your back, feet together, knees apart. Just breathing evenly. Filling the lungs to the top, emptying the lungs to the bottom. Okay, and then just come down onto your knees, just stretch forwards into Adho Mukha, virasana. Stretching out any tensions in your spine. And then just come up, and then Christine, stay in supta baddhakonasana for a little longer. Everyone else, come down into supta baddhakonasana. So come down onto your back, soles of the feet together, knees apart. You can always support your thighs with blocks if you need to. And then stretch your arms up to the ceiling, interlock your fingers, turn the palms out, and then extend your arms along the floor. If there's stiffness in your shoulders, then you can use blanket underneath your hands or a block underneath your hands. Just use the floor. Just listen to the sound of the breath. Soften the jaw and the tongue. Soften your throat. And then just gently release your arms. Just rest your hands on your lower ribs. Breathe evenly and deeply. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Pull your knees into your chest and then just have a little rock from side to side, just easing out any tensions in your back. And then just rock yourself up into a seated position. So we're going to do rajakopotasana because we've worked a lot in the hips, but not very much. So we've worked a lot in the shoulders, but we haven't done very much in the hips, and they're often good to kind of pair those kind of stretches. So rajakopotasana can be quite strong for your back. So if rajakopotasana is too strong for your back, then just being cross legs, hold onto your knees, draw your chin to the chest, lift mula bandha, and then just fill the lungs and empty the lungs. So you can do breathing in the bandhas if you prefer. Otherwise, just come down onto your knees, have your hands underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips, and then bring your right knee to make contact with the right wrist. Bring the right knee underneath the left hip, and then stretch that left leg back, and then come up onto the fingertips. So first of all, we want to kind of make the hips level. So the back leg hip often wants to be higher than the bent leg hip. So turn this back leg inwards, the front of the thigh, turn it inwards like you're doing Tadasana, so the hips come a bit more level. Be up on the fingertips, and then lift the abdomen away from the hips. Lift the abdomen up towards the diaphragm, and then lengthen up into that sternum bone, lifting the chin if you can. Breathe in evenly and deeply, and then just come down onto your elbows. Create a couple of fists for your hands, and then just rest your head down. So it's more like the yin version of the pose. So the yin version of the pose is where you just let go of the tensions of the pose and let gravity do the work. So in this pose particularly, the hip gets much more intense opening if we come into this yin version.
So activity and opening actions in the shoulders and in the hips. The really positive actions for the state of mind, because the shoulders and the pelvic region are emotional centers, and by working the shoulders we open the chest, by working the hips we open the pelvis. But we open the pelvis by closing the pelvis sometimes, and this is more like on one side it's a closed pelvis, on the other it's an open. But by working shoulders and hips, it's a real boon for positive thinking. Just lift your head, just bring your hands back towards the body, just lift and open the chest, activating that back leg, lifting it up into the sternum bone. And then bring the palms of the hands flat onto the floor, turn your toes under, and then just walk your back leg in, and then just come back onto all fours. So breathing evenly, deeply listening to the sound of the breath. And then bring the left knee close to the wrist, and then bring the left foot underneath the right hip, and then walk that right hip back, that right leg back. On fingertips, tadasanaise that back leg so that the hips come level, and then lift, really driving up into that sternum bone. And then come down onto your elbows. Create a couple of fists with your hands, but do the kind of atypical layering of the hands, the top hand being the bottom hand last time, and then just allow yourself to just release. So again, this yin version of the pose just brings a slightly more intense stretch into the outer hip, the front of the bent leg. If it's too strong, then lift your head, just come onto your elbows. Just feel how your body fills with energy. The skin becomes a little more present.
How the breath permeates into the blood. Keep the breath deep. Sometimes when we come forwards like this, especially with the yin approach, the breath becomes shallow. The more you focus on the breath, the more energized the pose becomes. And then lift your head, just come up, just walk your hands back to your knees or your the first stage, lift and open the chest, driving that sternum bone up. And then bring the palms of the hands down, just walk that back leg in and back into all fours, and then go up into dog down. Just observe the fluidity of the hips, the fluidity of the shoulders. Take deep inhalations, deep exhalations, because it's then that we become deeply energized and engaged with the breath. Try and breathe evenly into both lungs, evenly out of both lungs. And then come down onto your knees. Just sit back on your heels, big toes together, knees apart, and then just one more time come forwards into Adho Mukha virasana. Again, maybe feel the difference in the fluidity of the hips. Breathe deeply and evenly. Filling both lungs evenly, emptying both lungs evenly. And then just sit yourself up. Sit down on your, just come into cross legs. And then just hold on to your knees, lift. And open the chest. Observe how this chest feels light and buoyant. Breathe deeply and then turn to the right side. Using the out breath to intensify the turn. And come back to the center, lift. Open the chest, drive the spine upwards, take a good strong deep inhalation. And then turn to the left. And then very gently come back to the center. Just get your blanket. Just have that for your head. We're going to run over just by a minute or two. Hope that's okay. If not, then it's 57 past. So
Just do a very brief shavasana, and then just bring yourself out. Otherwise, we'll just lay ourselves down and then just stretch down into the floor, because you've worked hard, so you've earned this moment of just gathering yourself, observing the energy that you have harvested from the breath. So let the arms completely let go, unhook the muscles of the arms, unhook the muscles of the legs. Just normal breathing, but breathing into both lungs evenly, breathing out of both lungs evenly. Let the body become heavy on the floor. So the more you let go in the physical body, the more you observe the energy that rises to the uppermost skin. The energetic body rises up as the physical body relaxes. Draw your breath in through the nose and use the breath to distribute that feeling of lightness evenly throughout the body down to the tips of the toes, into the tips of the fingers and into the top of the head. Just basking in the glow of positive energy. When you're ready, just gently wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, bringing yourself back into this pose of Shavasana. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom. Just a little grounding massage, just bringing your attention back into the physical body. And then just roll over onto your right side for a moment. Just resting down on your right side. So in this position, your heart is at the top of the body, just giving the body a little release.
And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position. And then come into cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Just close your eyes. Draw your breath down into the abdomen. Conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy, that the extensions, the forward bends, the twists, the back bends, the reclining poses bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to observe and acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then gently release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards, and then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you can just feel that really good positive energy that you create through just extension and through focus on lifting and opening of the chest. And that way we kind of just fill up the body with energy, with good positive energy. So thank you very much for joining me.